The only thing necessary for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. It's important that people wake up to what is going on. It's time that we read the Constitution. It is error that needs the support of government. Truth can stand alone. That was given to us by Thomas Jefferson.
The original inn, which stands on the corner here of Lowell Street and Monument Square, was built in 1716. So you can tell it's a very old building. And originally it was just that building. And they were such great conservationists back in the day. What they did is that they ended up joining buildings and houses and moving houses and joining them to what you see now today, which is the Colonial Inn. We've been running as an inn since the late 1800s. Before that, it was a general store. And before that, the good Dr. Minot was on the corner here. And he was the good doctor when the colonists and the mother country, as they say, couldn't get along, and they ended up shooting each other over here at the bridge. During that time, being the good doctor and the only one around, they brought everybody down to the house. And so, in essence, it was really the first war hospital in the United States. They patched everybody up and they sent them on their way.
Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. This is The Real Story. My name's Dan Happney, and with me is Bob Schulz. Bob, thanks for coming on board. We're here in Concord at the place where, from what I understand, the Revolutionary War began a block or two up the street at a bridge?
Yeah, we're at the Colonial Inn in Concord, just on Monument Square. And this place was built in 1716. And at the start of the Revolutionary War, there were munitions kept in a shed here by the colonists and colonialists, and so the British were on their way to get it, and the folks didn't appreciate that, and they met them at the North Bridge, and the first shots of the Revolutionary War were
It's funny. So we have this whole, when I say these United States, we have things like our Constitution in this great country because of some militiamen or just individuals, whether they were farmers, okay, or blacksmiths or whatever, who came to say, wait a minute, this tyranny thing's been going on too long, and if we allow them to do this, it's just going to get worse. So they stopped what they were doing, left their families, and said, honey, stay home. I've got to go out and make sure that this is done right. I'm just motivated by it.
They put a collective foot down, and the rest is history. as they say.
What brought you here? What message do you have for the viewers in Sharon and the rest of the people in the world? Why is it important? You know, give us the.
Well, it's about the Constitution. The Constitution is all that stands between us, the people, and total tyranny and despotism. It's a rule book. It's a book to. It's a set of principles to govern the government. It's by its words, it sets the government up, and 3 branches, and it enables each branch. We the people have given up a little bit of our power to these 3 branches to do the job that we want them to do to secure our rights. That's their fundamental role. And so we have prohibitions and restrictions. It's, as I say, a set of principles to govern the government, and, for instance, it's unconstitutional, according to the War Powers Clauses, to apply the armed forces of the United States in hostilities overseas without a declaration of war. The Constitution says so. It's also, it has money clauses, and the current Federal Reserve is a violation of those clauses, those money clauses. And the tax on your labor violates the taxing clauses of the Constitution. And direct unapportioned tax is unconstitutional, which is what the tax is on your labor. And we have privacy clauses that our government is, violates when they pass an act like the USA Patriot Act, in which they take upon themselves the power to come into your home, copy your hard drive, and leave without ever telling you they were there.
And most recently, they tell us, well, warrantless wiretapping's okay.
Yeah, and we can open your mail and all this other stuff, right? All in the name of, terrorism, fighting terrorism and terrorists. So, so the Constitution's important, and it needs to. But the thing is, it doesn't defend itself. It just sits on your desk. Well, who's going to defend it? The government? Not hardly.
I love how some of my audience think that maybe some University of Massachusetts professor, or maybe some Harvard professor is going to do it for us. And the founders, they wrote it so that we not only understand it, okay, but it was something. It's funny. What was it? I think it was Benjamin Franklin when he came out, and the lady asked him, "Well, what form of government have you given us?" And he said, "Dear woman, we've given you a republic.
It's a republic if you can keep it." Right,
exactly.
Right. It's not easy. It's not in the natural order of things for you and I, the people, to be well informed about our rights and to be watching what government is doing, to scrutinize government's behavior and to compare government's behavior with the requirements of the Constitution. It's not easy. It's not in the natural order of things for us to look to and be prepared to confront government when they step out of line. And so the government knows this, and they don't fear us. Jefferson said, when the people fear the government, you have tyranny. When the government fears the people, you have liberty. Well, he wasn't talking about the government fearing the people because we were armed. No, he was talking about the government fearing the people because the government knew that we knew what our rights were, and we were watching them, and we were prepared to confront them if what they were doing was unauthorized by the Constitution. You and I can do whatever we want to do, as long as there's no law that says we can't. Government can only do what the Constitution authorizes them to do. If it's not in writing, they can't do it. And so the laws that Congress passes and your state legislature pass, those laws have to be constitutional.
Yeah.
And then if the law is constitutional, the government can only do what the law specifically authorizes. If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. But yet, this is what government does. And they know that, for the most part, the people are pretty well dumbed down as far as they're not very well informed about what their rights are. They're not very well informed about the history, the meaning, the effect, and the significance of every provision of the Declaration of Independence in your state and federal constitutions. In fact, they know that most people don't even know there's a state constitution. Yeah. And so they get away with what they do. And they've gone way out of the box. I mean, they are violating our rights left and right. And we're becoming more of a democracy than a republic. We seem to be transitioning from a constitutional republic to a to a democracy where, you know, one more than half the number of people decides everything.
What have you been involved in lately, and how can we, or how can those people out there learn more and help you?
So you can go to our website, givemeliberty.org, or wethepeoplefoundation.org, and get involved, get on our mailing list. It's a very large mailing list. We've had some, and spend some time, you folks out there, spend some time on our website. Become familiar with it. Look at some of the activities. Go to the archives, and look at what we've been doing. I think you're going to be surprised. We've been standing up and defending the Constitution. We're particularly focusing these days on the right to petition, the last 10 words of the First Amendment. And it's rather remarkable. The First Amendment guarantees 5 freedoms. You know about most of them, folks. The right of worship, the right of speech and press, and maybe some of you don't remember the right to peaceably assemble, get together and have meetings and criticize the government if you want to. But almost none of you will remember the last 10 words, the 5th of those 5 freedoms, which is the freedom to petition the government for redress, for a remedy to grievances. We have the right, if we think the government is doing something they're not authorized to do and they're oppressing the people in any way, we have the right to submit a petition for a redress of this grievance, for a remedy. And they have the obligation to respond. And if they don't, then you have the right to withdraw your allegiance. If they violate the Constitution, stepping outside the boundaries that we have drawn around their power, and we call them on it, and they ignore us, then as the Declaration of Independence says, a government that ignores a people is unfit to rule a free people. And so
That's them breaking the contract that we have with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they break it, not us. And if they break it, then why would you want to give them any money? So the founders, in their own words, said that when rulers want money from the people and they have in any manner oppressed the people may retain their money until their grievances are redressed, and thus peaceably procure relief. So it's a nonviolent, pretty cool tool provided right there in the Constitution that most people don't know about. This is the language of the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, that's the first freedom mentioned, or prohibiting free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, there's the second freedom, or of the press, the third freedom, or of the right of the people to peacefully assemble, as we're doing here today, that's the fourth freedom, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. That's the 5th of the 5 freedoms. In the First Amendment, if we have this document, this Constitution is all that stands between the people and total tyranny and despotism. If the founders left us nothing else except our state and federal constitutions and the essential principles underlying them, what else did they leave us? It's here. This is the ultimate rule book. If they step outside the boundaries that we, the people, have drawn around their power, they take possession of a boundless field of power. And we're screwed, to put it in the vernacular. So that clause is there for us to hold the government accountable. If you see them doing something they're not authorized to do, you can submit a petition for a redress or for a remedy of that grievance. You have a right to redress. It's a right that comes out of the Magna Carta. The cradle of liberties, the Magna Carta. It's mentioned there in a lot of documents, as we'll see in a minute, since then. So it's powerfully important. It's our ability to hold the government accountable. But governments have never wanted to be held accountable, and ours is no exception. Governments, they don't like opposition from any quarter, when you get right down to it, right? I just want to walk you through briefly the Declaration of Independence. Okay. In the beginning, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but in the beginning, it's basically the founders saying, we're doing something important here, and we really ought to tell the rest of the world why we're doing it. Right? I mean, that's basically the way the Declaration starts out. And then you begin, the bulk of the Declaration is the listing of the grievances. So if we just scroll down a little bit, Mike, you see the paragraphs, see the first one there, says he's talking about the king. Stay right there, Mike. He has refused to pass, and he has called together, he's done this, he's done that, and scroll down some more, Mike. These are the grievances that the founders had against the most powerful government in the world, on the globe. A government we were living under for 150 years. Biggest navy, biggest army, biggest military, you know. We were living under that system of government, you know, for 150 years, you know, before all this happened. So the bulk of the Constitution is just a listing of these grievances. You can just scan them, I don't need to read them. And then, this. This is the sentence that follows the grievances. This is what the scholars call the capstone grievance. It caps all the other grievances. And it is the grievance that caused the revolution, that sent us to war against England. What does it say? In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress, or for a remedy, in the most humble terms, and our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. That clause made it through every edit of the Declaration of Independence, with the exception of the addition of the word free. What does it say? It says, we have petitioned. This is the straw that breaks the camel's back. Our repeated petitions have been met with repeated injury. A government that doesn't listen to its people is unfit to rule a free people. That's what they're saying. And therefore, as it goes on, it says, therefore, we're out of here. You don't like it, come get us. And that's the Declaration of Independence. So go through those, when you get a moment, go through those grievances and compare our grievances today. Compare our life today with some of the grievances that the people had back then. There's a lot of similarities, you'll find. Imagine this, folks. No court has ever declared what the meaning of the last 10 words that is of the First Amendment. No court has ever declared. We know what it is. You study history and the historical context and purpose of those 10 words, and you find out that it means if just as I say, if government is doing something that they're not authorized to do and you petition them and they ignore you, then you can retain your money until your grievances are redressed. And that's a nice, nonviolent way to claim and exercise your rights and to hold the government accountable. Remember, the government is the enemy of freedom. Those aren't my words, those are Ronald Reagan's words. But I believe them. Government is the enemy of freedom. Government is made up of people who have to suffer from the same human frailties that you and I suffer from. Love of power and love of money and so forth. And so people in office do all of these, you know, self-serving things. And as government gains ground, liberty loses ground. It's axiomatic. It's like day follows night. But we are blessed with a recognition explained right in the founding documents, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. We're blessed with the ultimate power. We have rights that are endowed by the Creator simply because you're alive.
Yeah, and they can't be taken away just because someone wants to put the crown of kingdom, you know, king on their head, yeah, exactly. And say, well, I'm your ruler of all ruler.
Right, right.
Yeah.
The founders sitting in Philadelphia in 1774. You might say, the scholars in the audience might say, well, how relevant was the Continental Congress sitting in Philadelphia in 1774 when the Declaration of Independence hadn't been signed yet and there's no Constitution yet and whatever. This is the Congress that adopted the Declaration of Independence. And in 1774, they passed an act unanimously. If money is wanted by rulers who have in any manner oppressed the people, they may retain it until their grievances are redressed, and thus peaceably procure relief without trusting to despise petitions or disturbing the public tranquility. They knew that people had the right to petition, but they also knew government might not answer them. Because government doesn't like opposition from any quarter. They despise the petitions, the founders said. And so they said, the people may retain their money until their grievances are redressed and thus peaceably procure relief, a non-violent solution to your problems when the government steps outside the boundaries. You don't have to resort to the Second Amendment in today's terms, if the First Amendment, will work. And it's there without trusting to the despised petitions or disturbing the public tranquility. It's a non-violent tool, that a right that the people have. You don't have to resort to violence to overthrow and take the castles and the lands and all the weapons that the government has. You can just retain your money. You can withdraw your allegiance to the government. If they've stepped outside the boundaries, if they're doing something they have no authority to do. This is not done in a light-hearted way or anything of the sort. It's a serious matter. They act, and they apply armed forces of the United States in hostilities overseas without a declaration of war. They violate your privacy rights. They allow people, private parties, to take your land and give it to another private party simply because they could get more tax money from that land in violation of the fundamental property right. Pretty serious stuff. We have in Article 2 of the Constitution, it says which deals with the executive, it says the president shall take an oath to uphold the Constitution and so forth, but it also says to faithfully execute the laws. Well, we have all these laws on the books. Whatever your position is on immigration and undocumented aliens and all that kind of stuff, whatever it is, I would ask you to pay attention to the fact that we have laws on the books passed by Congress meant to deal with illegal immigrants, meant to punish those who hire them and so forth. But neither party wants to enforce these laws because they don't want to offend, the Latino vote or something of that sort. I'm sorry. The laws are on the books. It's unconstitutional not to enforce them. The Constitution is not a menu. We don't decide what we want to enforce and what we don't want to enforce. As long as it's there, I mean, if you don't like it, Mr. President, Mr. and Mrs. Congress, if you don't like it, repeal it. But geez, don't sit there and allow what's happening while we've got these laws on the books when you take an oath to faithfully execute the laws. It's in Article 2 of the Constitution.
Can you tell our viewers a little bit about, and I really like this analogy, or at least the way you present it to people, where, once again, my viewers, I recommend not only if they're in school, but even if you're graduated school and you're done with school, pick up a Constitution and read it. But important was, you were mentioning to people who said, it's not a menu. You don't get to choose the thing, like, freedom of speech. Well, we're choosing to let you have that today, and hopefully we get to enjoy, but it's not a menu. It's, once again, it's specific, it's line by line, it says exactly
You can't decide, what parts of it you like and what parts of it you don't like. Some people say, well, I don't like guns out there, and so I don't believe in the Second Amendment. Sorry, it's there. If you don't like it, there's a process to change the Constitution, but you can't decide that it's okay to disarm the people because I like that policy and so does my congressman. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. You don't like the language of the Second Amendment, or
go through the process.
Then go through the process and change it. See if you can convince 3/4 of the state legislatures to convert this country, to disarm the people and to convert this country from a republic to a pure democracy. But which, by the way, the founders very emphatically rejected the idea of a democracy where the majority could vote away your rights, your individual rights. They said your rights are individual rights. They're endowed by the Creator. The government didn't create them. The majority didn't give you them, and they can't take them away.
Well, and the other thing, the viewers, hopefully they know after a couple shows that I don't believe the word democracy even appears in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights.
No, it doesn't.
Or the Declaration of Independence. Yet we're constantly sold that.
Right.
And we're probably sold it by the same people who sell us many other things.
The petition for redress is mentioned first in the Magna Carta. What was the Magna Carta? Magna Carta is the cradle of liberty. Over in England, before signed in 1215. Before 1215, you had these monarchs who had absolute power. They could do no wrong. You couldn't sue them. They were God's representative on earth. They could do to you whatever they wanted to do to you. Tax you to whatever extent, send people to take you out and lynch you. Whatever they wanted to do, they could do that. And so the barons, you know, confronted the king at Runnymede. And the king signed the Declaration of Independence. Signed the Magna Carta. And what does it say? It says, you can see the words. It says, well, let's read it. If we, or our Chief Justice, our officials, or any of our servants offend in any respect against any man, if we oppress or infringe on your natural rights, or transgress any of the articles of the peace or of this security, and the offense is made known to 4 of the said 25 barons, they shall come to us, or in our absence, come to us, the monarchy, the king and the queen, or in our absence from the kingdom to the Chief Justice, to declare it and claim immediate remedy or immediate redress. So if the folks feel that they've been oppressed by the government, you can go to your barons, and any 4 of the 25 can come to us. If we, or in our absence abroad, the Chief Justice, if we make no remedy, if we make no redress, within 40 days, reckoning from the day on which the offense was declared to us or to him, the 4 barons shall refer the matter to the rest of the 25 barons, who may distrain upon and assail us in every way possible, with the support of the whole community of the land, by seizing our castles, lands, possessions, or anything else, saving only our own person and those of the Queen and our children, until they have secured such redress as they have determined upon. So take everything we own by force, use whatever means necessary, take everything we own except my life, the king's saying, and the life of the Queen and the children. Wow. 41 days to respond. Having secured the redress, they may then resume their normal obedience to us. And beginning with this, I mean, the right to petition, the right of speech, press, assembly, these, the scholars have correctly determined, are derivative rights. What good is the right to petition if you couldn't speak about it, if you couldn't write about it, if you couldn't meet and talk about it? So these other rights, you know, the more popular rights, are derivative rights. They derive from this fundamental right to hold a government accountable.
They were, I want to say, blessed, these viewers. They got to watch Aaron Russo's Freedom to Fascism. Can you tell our audience a little, you knew Aaron?
Yes.
You met and may have worked with him. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a great guy. He was an interesting fella. Obviously an acclaimed, accomplished Hollywood producer. And we had him as a speaker at our national conference in 2004. And he was pretty impressed with the lineup of speakers we had there. The theme of the conference was the state of the Constitution. And so we had leading speakers there who were familiar with various rights like property rights and privacy rights and Second Amendment rights and so forth, and talking about the state of affairs. And in any event, Aaron learned that we were going to, one more time, submit our petitions for redress of grievances to the government on July 19th and in 2004. One of those petitions had to do with the, we were trying to reconcile the differences between the Iraq resolution and the War Powers Clause, between the direct unapportioned tax on your labor and the taxing clauses, between the privacy clauses of the Constitution and the USA Patriot Act, and the Federal Reserve and the money clauses. We were trying to reconcile the differences, so we had these 4 petitions for redress of those grievances. And we were mentioning at this conference that we were going to bring a lawsuit against the federal government, asking them to declare what our rights are and what the government's obligations are under the last 10 words of the First Amendment, something they have never done. And then we were going to march down to the federal courthouse from the National Press Club in Washington. And so Aaron, fortunately, C-SPAN covered our event live, and he was just so excited. Aaron called and said, "This is wonderful. I'm going to make a movie about this." And he did. And we helped him with the script and with the content for the film. And then we, when he just about had it ready, It's called America, Freedom to Fascism. And he was finally ready, and we ended up renting commercial theaters in 24 cities around the country, one end of the country to the other, just to screen it. And we were fortunate in having packed houses in each one of those cities. Denver, Tucson, Austin, Hollywood. We rented a theater in Hollywood, and there were so many people. There were only 450 seats in the theater. Well, the line was around the block, and so we had to tell all the people that we'll run it again, but it'll be in an hour and a half. And so those people came back, and so we ran it a second time that night, and it was very well received. Obviously the dominant media and the film festivals wouldn't touch it because it has this, quote, anti-government aspect to it. But in fact, it brings out a lot of truth about what's going on in America. And so Aaron has not had the benefit of getting the dominant media and Variety, magazine behind him. But the film has nonetheless been seen by millions of people. And it is available, I think it's still available, freedomtofascism.org.
Mm-hmm. We also have copies in the Sharon Public Library for the viewers.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I recommend everybody see that movie. And then, of course, while you're at it, looking at great movies, there's another one out that you can go to your local video store and rent. It's called V, like Victor, V for Vendetta. And it's just a great film. It takes place in England in the year 2015. England at that time has become a real bad police state with lots of surveillance and loss of rights, a lot of in the interest of security, right? What happens. But it's a great film, and strongly recommend it. People go out and rent that and watch that film as well.
Thank you, Bob Schulz.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Thanks for coming to Concord. Thanks for helping the people of Sharon understand that this Constitution, it's not a boring thing. It's probably the sexiest document you'll ever pick up. And what's important is it's important for your children. It's important for your children's children. It's up to you to do something. Not just sit there and worry about whether or not the Patriots, I'm sorry, they lost their Super Bowl. But let's get to what's really important, what makes this place a great place, and what we can do to save it, to keep the Republic. Like you say, a democracy is not what they wanted, and a democracy is mob rule.
And the Constitution just doesn't defend itself. That's our job.
Yeah.
We don't do it, nobody else will. And, it's interesting. At one time, freedom was life in America. Now money is life. And more people are interested in material things than in freedom. And they don't realize what's happening to them. So they really ought to, people ought to take time, listen to shows like this, and look at use the internet, look at some of the less than dominant media. Don't always just depend upon your dominant media for your news, but check out the internet and educate yourselves and learn what your rights are. Become better informed about what your rights are. Pay attention to what government is saying and doing. Join organizations like ours, so that you don't feel alone. I know most people are, who know the truth. They find it difficult to even talk to their spouses or their coworkers about some of this stuff. But there are many of us out there, and there's organizations that you can hook up with, and then come to groups like this and meetings like this and feel normal. I feel normal in meetings like this.
Yeah. And it's funny because here we are, of all places, we're right, we're in that spot on the globe. Maybe not in that spot in time, okay, where people said, hey, we're not for tyranny, we are for freedom, and we're willing, as you say, to put your foot down or put their foot down, together.
Well, keep up the good work.
Thank you, and stay with health.
Okay, stay well, stay vigilant.